What if the most powerful kind of love is the one that never shows up on time? That's the question at the core of South of Midnight's story, as Hazel resents her mother's absence in her life. But over the course of her adventure in her mystically infused hometown of Prospero, she learns how the absence of a parent can actually be a profound presence in trying to make her life better. Lacey's time as a social worker is what provides the framework and skills that Hazel has to learn in order to rescue her mother from Hug and Molly. As Hazel traverses the Southern Gothic fantasy she finds herself in, she comes across many unfortunate souls and helps them through their terrible trauma. I'm a bit mixed on the metaphor of her literally bottling up all of these people's problems, as I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to do that. But that aside, Hazel spends the course of the game restoring the lives of the troubled residents of Prospero as she searches for her mother. Normally, helping side characters with their problems is relegated to a side quest in AAA games, but these sections play a crucial role in the themes of South of Midnight, because Hazel helping these troubled people is a direct parallel to Lacey's job as a social worker, where she spends her time putting the needy before herself and making sure everyone else is okay in order to foster a better community. South of Midnight is about Hazel's journey in learning these valuable life lessons from her mother, as the people she helps are the ones that guide her to Hug and Molly's lair and lead to her success. It's a story where the child is put into the shoes of their parents to see just how hard their lives are. We all have this concept when we're young that we can't wait to grow up, because then we'll be in charge of our lives. But when we get there, we realize we had way more control during our youths. And that's just one example of the many misconceptions we have as kids. South of Midnight is all about its protagonist going through these revelations and learning that those aspects of adulthood that initially annoyed us are the keys to her success. These childlike misconceptions are also portrayed in the game as Hazel's role as a weaver, which the game describes as someone that perceives the connection that bind all life and mend the ties that have been frayed by suffering. In the same way, Hazel explores the memories of the people she helps and pieces together their stories to learn the full extent of their tragedies so she can begin the healing process. Hazel herself makes the connections behind her mother's absence from her life and the role she serves in helping the people of Prospero, essentially filling the role of a social worker through a magical lens. When Hazel sees beyond the physical reality, it translates to how we as kids weren't capable of understanding our parents and presents us with a magical shift in perspective when we can see how our parents lived their lives. As a kid with autism, I was really left unattended, but even then I didn't appreciate or understand how much extra time and effort my parents put into me, beyond what most kids receive. But I couldn't see that and still had the gall to accuse them of loving my sister more for no other reason than I was jealous of how successful she was academically and socially. I thought because she was better off, it meant they put more effort into raising her, when in reality, it took everything they had just to keep me happy. In the same way, Hazel thinks Lacey is putting more effort into the town of Prospero because that's where all of her attention is. And speaking of Prospero, let's take this metaphor a bit further by examining the literary origins of South of Midnight. I don't normally like to give context and recaps on this channel, and I just want to deliver nothing but opinion and analysis. However, in this instance, context is required, although I will heavily abridge it. Prospero is a character in a Shakespeare play called The Tempest, who was a duke of a kingdom, but he was more interested in magic, which leads to him being usurped and him and his daughter being exiled. Then there's a whole bunch of other crazy stuff, and he uses magic to regain his title and marry his daughter to the prince, and gets a happy ending. We can draw a parallel between Lacey and Prospero, though it's not one-to-one, as there's a valid interpretation that Prospero is the villain of the story, but we're not here to analyze Shakespeare. Prospero and Lacey both neglect their duties as a ruler and mother respectively, but the thing that they pour their time into instead is ultimately for the benefit of their children, as both of them use their skills in order to grant their kids ultimate happiness. Just as Prospero summons the Tempest that ultimately restores his life, Lacey restores the town of Prospero and helps it survive the tempest that strikes it. While both stories have the parents' skills solve the problems their children are facing, it's only in South of Midnight where these abilities are inherited by the child and treated as lessons to learn. For more Xbox essays, here's one about the choices of Avowed and Obsidian as a whole, and I'll be back in 2 days.